This is a good question on everyone's mind, isn't it? But I just don't think I'm ready to answer this question just yet, AV Tweaker man. Boulder 3010, 3050, or the Griffin Apex Pre and Pro? Which one do I prefer with the XVX? Let me just answer it this way. What do you prefer, Pepsi or Coke? They're both sodas. They're both dark, sweet to some extent. There is no right or wrong. I think both are phenomenal components, phenomenal brands. When you get to that level of performance, nothing sucks at that level of performance. Both of them are amazing. Okay. What I can tell you about that is it's a matter of preference. If you were to tell me, Jay, you can only have one or the other for the rest of your life, I would welcome either one of them because they both are phenomenal brands. But of course, yes, there is the question of which one I prefer. And maybe at some point, I will make a video about which one I prefer out of the two. Remember, I had the Boulder Electronics here, the 3000 series, for about a year. So I've had them for a while. This has only been with me for, what, 2 months? So I still got a long way to go before I can give you a fair assessment as to what each one does and which one I prefer. Will I ever do the ultimate showdown between the Wham, Wilson Audio Wham, and the Magico M9? Whoa. It belongs in this channel, doesn't it? Both of them. That shootout belongs in here. Well, a couple of things you need to know. Number one, those are very difficult speakers to come by. Okay. I don't even know of anyone who has a pair of Magico M9s. Not a single person. I have never messaged with anyone that has Magico M9s. So that right there presents a hurdle. Number two, the Whams. I do know of like 2 people that have Whams, but I don't have a relationship with them. So I haven't been able to hear them in person. I have never seen a Wham in person. I would love to see it in person. But I agree with you that that will be one incredible experience for me if I could put that together somehow and go to 2 different locations to hear both. Because let's be honest, the chances of me hearing both in the same room will be 0%. So I would more than gladly sit in front of these 2 masterpieces and compare. I don't think in the near future you'll see this because it is just so far above my pay grade. If I'm being honest, this is like Bugatti territory. I play with Mercedes Benz. I play with BMWs and maybe Aston Martin to a certain extent, but you're asking me to go to Bugatti price points, and that's just, yeah, that's too rich for my blood. What do I think about Constellation Inspiration stereo amplifier? Any competition on the price range to be considered? Constellation Inspiration stereo amplifier. I think for the money is a great amplifier. I expect it to sound identical to the rest of the Constellation amplifiers, like the Taurus, Centaur, the Hercules. The tonality is the same. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to grip the woofers in the same fashion as the more expensive siblings. No, it's not going to do that. Okay, but I think it gives you a really nice taste of what the Constellation house sound is all about. Okay, it's a very sweet sound, romantic. It reminds me a lot of Luxman. I've said it. Constellation, generally speaking, reminds me a lot of the Luxman sound. It is not cold at all. It doesn't sound cold. It doesn't sound analytical. It doesn't sound boring. On the contrary, Constellation sounds very nice, very smooth, very detailed, so engaging, so pretty, sweet sounding. There are so many great attributes that Constellation brings to the table when it comes to sound production. I am very attracted to the sound of Constellation amplifiers. I have never denied that, and I continue to say the same thing. I just hope that Constellation can come up with new components, new amplifiers, new preamplifiers. I think they have been doing the same components for far too long. It's time to revamp the line. It is time for them to come up with different amplifiers and preamplifiers, surprise us with something new. They haven't changed anything in a long time. And I know that could be a good thing to some of you because maybe you do not want to get involved with brands that are changing components every 5 years, okay? And I get that. But I think Constellation is just long overdue to replace a lot of these like inspiration amplifiers, the Taurus amplifiers. I think it's time for them to do something new and different. When OCD Mikey talked about my system, he called it perfect to the degree that it was sterile. Would you say this is the type of sound you're trying to achieve? No. So what I'm trying to achieve is opportunity to evaluate a lot of components, a lot of brands, a lot of things. Okay. When someone critiques my system, I have no reason to argue with them because at the end of the day, this is all subjective. When I heard OCD Mikey's system, I thought it was good, but it's not my type of sound. Does that mean I hate his system? No. I just don't feel like that's the direction in which I would go if I had money to spend. Okay. Now, that said, I am more about the facts. I am more about neutrality. I'm more about keeping the syrup off of the pancakes. I don't want syrup on my pancakes. I want to taste the pancakes for what they are. I want to taste the bananas in the pancakes, the strawberries on top. I don't like syrup, and some people love syrup. I don't want that in my music. I don't want for every song to sound the same. For me, it is important that I hear exactly what was recorded. So I can see why someone could categorize my system as perhaps too analytical or too sterile or too much of something. I get it, 100%. But at the end of the day, you're building a system for you. You're not building a system to please the masses. Remember that. This is what's important with this hobby. It is important that you understand when you build a system, you are building it for you. You're not building it for me or anybody else. It's you who has to like it. Whatever your definition of a good sounding system is, may not necessarily align with my definition of a good sounding system. But it doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. We just have differences of opinion. And I think him and I have differences of opinion when it comes to systems. Nothing wrong with that. That's why we have so many options available to us. Okay. My system is about high definition, it's about clarity. My system is about dynamics, explosiveness, huge soundstage. That's at a high level what my system is about. Okay. When you come into my room and you hear my system, I promise you, you're going to hear things in here that you probably have never heard before in other systems. And so I'm not worried about what others may say about what I have built here. Just remember that it's a journey. I'm going through a journey. My system consistently changes. Okay. I just had a conversation with some people about my Wilson Audio Chronosonic XVXs. And they are clearly interested in the speakers. Okay. But once they are gone, the next speaker that enters will be a complete departure. I will be moving in a different direction, right? So I start from ground zero all over again because the most important component are the loudspeakers in any system. So when you replace speakers and put a different brand in place, you pretty much undid all the synergy you built because now you have a different speaker, perhaps with a different tweeter, different bass drivers. It could be a different design. You went from a box speaker to a panel, perhaps. So remember, at the end of the day, it's you who has to like your own system. Would I be able to share my experience on the Nagra Sound? Look, the Nagra Sound to me is a sound that I keep hearing from people who own their HD systems, HD amplifiers, preamplifiers, and DACs. It's very engaging, very pretty, very musical. Okay. Clearly, it has tubes. So that's going to be the nature of the sound. I have no opinion on Nagra HD stuff because I haven't really spent time with it. So I'm not about to pretend to be the expert when it comes to Nagra sound. What I do have an opinion on is their classic serious stuff. I was very blunt in the past, okay, about their stuff. I personally think that their classic serious stuff is way overpriced. Okay. When I had their classic stereo amplifier in here, it must have weighed 10 pounds on a good day. And it was like 15K. I don't know if it is $15,000 today, but it was $15,000 MSRP when I had it. $15,000 for an amplifier that weighed probably 15 pounds, 10, 15 pounds. When I see that amplifier, and then next to it, I place a Luxman 900U that MSRP'd for $15K when it was retired. You cannot get me to buy a Nagra Classic stereo amplifier. When I look at a Luxman that weighs nearly 100 pounds, far better construction, prettier, amazing sound, you couldn't get me to buy a Nagra Classic stereo amplifier. When it comes to the preamplifier, I mean, it was okay, but again, 15K, I think it is, or was. Too many options at that price point, and I just don't think that their classic series, to me, are great price performance propositions. I cannot talk about the HD stuff, though. I'm not going to get into that. Their HD stuff, I have no idea about those components. Their classic series, to me, is just way overpriced, and there are many other brands doing better things at those particular price points.